The Lifestyle Show, presented by Selena Mackenzie.
We're going to be chatting to Karen Lee now about her book, Healing from the Inside Out, Managing Autoimmune Disease with a Whole Food Plant-Based Diet. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, I read that 10% of the UK population has one or more autoimmune condition. That's a lot, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very surprising statistic, but I think it's because we tend to look at them as individual conditions, not as when they're all grouped together.
Are there a lot of autoimmune conditions?
There are. They've identified over 100 so far. Some are very rare, and other ones are more common. So most people have heard of conditions like multiple sclerosis or lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. They tend to be, some of the main ones, but autoimmune conditions can affect any part of the body.
Is diabetes an autoimmune disease condition?
Well, type 1 diabetes that's when the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin get destroyed. So the immune system attacks them. So those cells can't make insulin anymore, which is why people with type 1 diabetes need to be very well controlled with injecting or insulin infusions. Whereas type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle impact mainly.
And of course, there's Hashimoto's disease, which is the underactive thyroid.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Yeah. That's there's the thyroid. You can either have an underactive thyroid or an overactive thyroid. And again, it's the immune system attacking certain cells in the thyroid that either means that you are not producing enough thyroxine, or the controls for managing that get attacked.
So people with any of these autoimmune conditions, are they generally sensitive to certain foods then?
Well, one of the things that the research is beginning to tell us now is that one of the something that everyone with autoimmune disease has in common is something called dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in the microbiome. And often we have additional food intolerances or what's commonly known as leaky gut. And the thing is, the immune system, 70% of the immune system is either in or around the gut. So gut health is really important. So you often find that food intolerances, food sensitivities can go hand in hand with autoimmune disease.
Yeah, I've heard of leaky gut syndrome. A lot of people that think they've got IBS actually have that, don't they?
Yes, yeah, and IBS is one of those conditions where people get told that because their symptoms sort of come in under a group, but it's just a label almost. It's essentially that's down to dysbiosis as well.
And how can you find out then if somebody has got all the symptoms of IBS, and obviously the doctor says, well, it's IBS, and so you just have to go away and put up with it. How can you find out exactly which group it is? Do you have to have a blood test?
Well, there's various investigations that can be done. There are autoimmune conditions specifically in the gut. So we're looking at things like celiac disease and Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. They all come under the autoimmune umbrella. So there are specific tests for those. They're looking for certain types of antibodies. You can test for gluten intolerance and things like that. So hopefully your GP or your specialist doctor will be running those tests anyway to highlight that. And IBS it doesn't necessarily lead to autoimmune disease. You can have dysbiosis and this imbalance in your microbiome can lead to all sorts of conditions, or you can just have dysbiosis in itself. So there's lots of different tests that would need to be done, or certain symptoms that would point the doctors in a certain direction.
Yeah, it's not always easy to diagnose, is it? That's the problem.
It's not easy to diagnose, yeah, and sometimes people with autoimmune disease It can take years for them to actually receive their diagnosis because it tends to be a random collection of symptoms. So for example, I've got multiple sclerosis, and I was diagnosed relatively quickly because I had some pretty classic symptoms, mainly optic neuritis, which tends to occur mainly with MS. But other people that might get sort of like, pins and needles or headaches or kind of random numbness in their hands or feet, doctors don't want to jump to these, diagnoses too quickly because it might be nothing. So there is a balance. And sometimes it can really take a long time for people to get their diagnoses, particularly if it's a rare condition.
That makes sense. So what's your answer then, Karen? Because it is a cookery book. How can people reduce their symptoms like inflammation? What sort of recipes are in there?
So the first half of the book is covering all sorts of information about the foods that are great to eat for gut health and for autoimmune disease and to support the immune system. And the second half, the recipes are just a lovely, tasty selection of different foods that are packed full of whole plant foods. So they feature a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. So you're getting your healthy fats, but also pulses and legumes as well, and grains. But gluten can be an issue for a lot of different autoimmune diseases. And so all of the recipes are gluten-free as well. However, in a little bit of a random twist, these recipes are also, you can make them with whole grain, so wheat, if you don't have a problem with gluten. Usually recipes are where this is, add flour, but you can try it with a gluten-free flour. This way I've tested to make sure that they're all very suitable and work really well for people who are following a gluten-free way of eating as well.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can buy now, isn't it? Even over here in Spain, there are shops with gluten-free sections and other sections. It's very helpful.
Yeah, there are a lot of different foods available. There's some of them you do need to check the ingredients though, because to try and mimic certain ingredients, they can include a lot of fillers and sort of emulsifiers and compounds that in themselves might not be very beneficial for gut health as well. So I always promote eating as close to a whole food as possible. For example, in this recipe we're going to be looking at, I use gram flour or chickpea flour, and that's just ground chickpeas. There's nothing else added into that. Whereas some of the gluten-free flour mixes, you look at it and you just think, I have no idea what that is because there's so many different E numbers and everything.
Yeah. Well, let's go to it then. You tell us how to make a vegetable curry with chickpea dumplings.
Okay, so this is very simple, and that's the other thing. Most of my recipes are very simple because one of the problems that you have with autoimmune disease, for most people, is an issue with fatigue and energy. So this recipe, I've used fresh vegetables in it, but if you don't have the energy, then if you've got some mixed vegetables in the freezer, then they work just as well. And frozen vegetables tend to retain a lot of their nutrients because they're kind of processed and frozen really quickly. Whereas sometimes in the shops that might have been shipped or, it's a while since harvest. So some of their nutrients have disappeared. But for this particular curry, what we've got as a base is an onion. You could use red or white onion, and all of the different colours in the foods, they come with different anti-inflammatory compounds in them. So I use lots of different colours. So we've got a mix of onions, some garlic and ginger. And garlic and ginger in themselves have very powerful anti-inflammatory properties. And I like to turn this into a bit of a paste. So I just roughly cut them, you don't have to finely dice them, and pop them into a little blender pot with a little bit of water so you form a paste. And then the vegetables, you can prepare those. So again, use a mixture of colours or whatever you like. So I tend to use a mixture of carrots and sweet potatoes. I might use some red pepper, some broccoli, all sorts of things. So you've got 750 grams of vegetables. So you'd need to prepare those. So just chop them into bite-sized pieces. And then you just get a pot and it needs to be suitable to go into the oven because the dumplings on top are going to bake on the top. So I don't fry with oil because, again, that can change the structure of the oil. So I tend to fry with water and then add in some oil afterwards. So I add in 2 tablespoons of water. I pop in this paste and heat it over a medium heat. So that's the onion, garlic and ginger. They just saute away for about 5 minutes or so. You just need to stir it so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. I hate the taste of burnt garlic.
Yeah, me too.
It's really pungent. It changes the flavour. So just saute that for about 5 minutes on a medium heat. And then you can add in the vegetables that take a little bit longer to cook. So if you're using sweet potatoes or squash or carrots, you'd pop them in first. And then add in, saute them for a few minutes, then add in a tin of chopped tomatoes. That's just your standard 400 gram tin, and chopped up tomatoes and some extra water. And then you can start putting your spices in as well. So for this particular recipe, I've used a mix of cumin, some turmeric powder and garam masala. And I've put in some fenugreek leaves as well. If you haven't got them, don't worry. But they just add in another extra flavour and then you add in some chili flakes and some black pepper. And all of these spices themselves come with some quite powerful anti-inflammatory compounds as well. So turmeric in particular, because it's got this phytonutrient called curcumin. And that is very good at calming down inflammation in the body. But you have to make sure you put the black pepper in there, or even pink pepper if you can't tolerate black pepper, because the piperine, which is another compound in the pepper, helps make it more absorbable into the body. So you've got your veggies, your longer to cook veggies, you've got your tomatoes, you've got your spices. So you've stirred that all in, and then you leave that to simmer for until those veg start to soften slightly. And then you're going to add in any other vegetables that don't take quite so long to cook. So this is things like some broccoli if you're using it, or you might be using some kale and some peas. So you pop them in and get them to just being lightly cooked because you don't want to overcook them. And whilst that's all simmering away, then you can make your dumpling mix. And the dumplings are, like I say, it's using some chickpea flour or gram flour. If you live near a international food store or an Asian, they always have that in stock. Alternatively, if you've got an Indian section in your supermarket, you'll find it there as well. So we're using 100 grams of chickpea flour. You need a little bit of baking powder in there. And again, if you're strictly gluten-free, make sure that your baking powder is gluten-free as well. That's just to help lighten the dumplings a little bit. We're going to put a little bit more of turmeric in there as well, along with some garam masala and a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I like to put in some fresh coriander. Now, that's not everybody likes the taste of fresh coriander. I think it's something like 12% of people, it tastes like soap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. And it really strongly affects. I know a few people who have that problem, and it's just something in the taste buds. It's a genetic thing. So leave that out if that's you. But also just put a little bit of red onion in there as well. It just adds some more flavour to it. And then you mix that all together with 180 grams of dairy-free yogurt. Now, I tend to use soya yogurt, but you could have almond or coconut yogurt, depending upon what you can tolerate. And that comes together in quite a thick mix. So you don't want it so thick that it doesn't come off the spoon, but you don't want it too runny either because the dumplings need to keep a form. So if for some reason it's a bit too thick, then just add a little bit more yogurt. But if it's too runny, then add a little bit of chickpea flour and it will all come together. And then once your veggies are just, like I say, just slightly cooked, you dollop spoonfuls of the mixture, of the dumpling mixture on the top so that it's covering it, and then you can pop it in the oven. So you need to preheat the oven to about 180 degrees and then pop that in the oven. You don't need to cover it up. It takes about 15 minutes to bake. And you know when the dumplings are ready because they're lightly firm on the top when you just press it with your finger, or they could be slightly browned as well. It just depends on how strong your oven is and how full your pot is. Because the closer to the top of the pot, then the browner they go. And then when that's done, it's all ready. It's all ready to serve. Oh, it's absolutely delicious.
It does. It sounds great. And it sounds like a well-informed book. I don't think there are that many of these types of book about. So our listeners can buy it right now from our website, tre.radio. It's called Healing from the Inside Out, Managing Autoimmune Disease with a Whole Food Plant-Based Diet. I take that back. You can pre-order it. I believe it's out on the 15th of January, Karen?
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's out next Thursday, so not long. But yes, do pre-order it otherwise.
Excellent. And do you have a website as well?
Yes, my website, where you'll find lots of different recipes on there as well. So it's www.thesensitivefoodiekitchen.com.
Great stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I feel like I've learned a lot in the last 15 minutes. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.